Good afternoon, Muttonistas, and welcome to a sunny afternoon in Dublin, where I'm wearing a coat rather superfluously. Obviously, I've brought you lots of content about Guinness in Dublin, so I thought I'd do something a little bit different for this video, and something possibly a little bit controversial, and that is to review pints of Beamish in Dublin, the home of Guinness. I'm absolutely knackered. I had 4 hours sleep last night. I've got an intercontinental flight tomorrow, but who cares? This is important research. Let's do it. Okay, so as I mentioned, Muttonistas, I'm going to bring you a few pubs where reputedly the Beamish is top notch. Now, I've had to rely on you, the Muttonistas, particularly the Dublin Muttonistas, to tell me where to go, and I've managed to pick 5 pubs out. All fairly walkable, all south of the River Liffey, and you should be able to follow this crawl if you so wish when you're in Dublin, because all the pubs are like a 10-minute walk away from each other maximum. I'm going to take a Guinness at the end just for quality control and so that I can compare and contrast, but we're going to start here at the Herald House. I've no idea what I'm going to get inside here, other than hopefully a great pint, and some of these pubs are not at all on the tourist radar because tourists, okay, I suppose I am as well, usually hunt for Guinness. Okay, Muttonistas, the Herald House. Now, having chatted to the barman, apparently this is the pub that sells the most Beamish in Dublin. Has 2 taps, the only one. They sell 60% Beamish, 40% Guinness. Pretty impressive in Dublin. And, what's more, the price, corking price, €4.90. I think after 7 or half 7 it goes up to $5.40, but that still is not bad at all. Nice pub, leather seating, and a great TV screen if you want to watch football. But it's all about the quality of the beverage, folks, and I am joined by local Dublin Muttonistas, and I'm not really into splitting the B. I'll just have my normal first sip, and I'm hoping this is a really creamy Beamy. It is indeed. That traditional Beamish smokiness, not too pronounced in this pint, so I think they keep it really, really well. Smooth, creamy, stick, lacing, lacquering, whatever you want to call it. Perfect. A great start to the video, Muttonistas. Okay, Muttonistas, coming to the end of the first pint. I mean, great lining, lacquering, lacing on the side of the glass. The pint stayed true to the end of the glass, and I got a bit more of the smokiness at the finish. So this was a great start to the pub crawl, and I'm hoping all the pubs will be as good as this. Although I have a funny feeling maybe this was the best place that we started with. Only 1 pint in each pub because I've got a long haul flight to China tomorrow. I guess however it goes, I'm going to feel like my head's being rubbed with sandpaper in the morning, but I'll try and calm it down as much as possible. Onwards and upwards. Okay, Muttonistas, pub number 2, J. O'Connell's. Now, no obvious signs of Beamish here, although people have told me they serve a decent...
That's
That's right, yeah. Thank you. Always great to meet Muttonistas, and wasn't it great at the first pub to bump into so many? Anyway, J. O'Connell's supposedly has good Beamish. As I said, no signs outside to suggest that they do, but I'm sure my Muttonistas are not selling me any pork pies here. So it looks like a very old-fashioned traditional pub. Wooden barrels outside for smokers, always a good sign. And hey, if they don't have Beamish, I'll have a Guinness and I'll ad-lib it a bit. Okay, Muttonistas, pub number 2, J. O'Connell's. Lovely walk down the canal, great weather again, just like when I was in Galway. And this appears to be more of a Guinness drinkers pub. They do obviously have Beamish here, but I saw more taps of Guinness, more people drinking Guinness, although a fair few on lager. The seating is lovely, good old-fashioned red leather. Some of the fittings in the bar are actually quite modern as well, and it does attract quite a mixed crowd, so some younger people, some older people. Anyway, enough waffle, we need to know how the Beamish tastes. Actually, it's been served quite cold in both the bars I've been to so far. Again, the smoky taste isn't coming out at first, but it is giving me a smoky finish. Again, very creamy. I mean, look at that. That is pretty good. €5.80, so a bit more expensive, but still pretty reasonable in Dublin. Don't forget, those of you who go to Temple Bar can be paying close to €10 a pint. So Muttonistas coming to the end of pint 2. Good, decent, solid pint. Okay, not as good as the Harold House, and okay, obviously not as good as in Cork and Limerick, where it's probably at its best, though the Harold House did give it a run for its money. Anyway, the pint was good all the way down to the bottom of the glass, and we're going to move on to a place called Anshare. It's an Irish word, and I'm not good at the pronunciation, but some of the locals told me that's how it should be pronounced. Let's get on with this and move on to pub 3. And haven't I been blessed, Muttonistas, with the weather in Dublin today, just like I was in Galway. A little disclaimer about the pint there. I was the only person in the pub, I think, on the Beamish. So if a group of lads are in there drinking it into form, it could possibly be even better. Don't get me wrong, it was a very, very decent pint. I'd bite your hand off for that in Manchester. Okay, brief interlude, an unplanned one. I'm not going to go in there, but behind me there's a Wetherspoons. Yes, Wetherspoons is present in Ireland, and I believe they serve Beamish and not Guinness there. Thing is, I've got my pubs pre-planned, and okay, we've got Wetherspoons all over the UK, so there's not really much of a novelty factor there. Let's go to the next pub. I've heard great things about Anseos. It's spelled Anseos in English, not pronounced like that, of course, and I believe they do a pretty mean pint of Beamish, and of Guinness as well. Right, Muttonistas, pub 3. And show, I believe it is pronounced. And on that walk from the previous pub, from O'Connell's, past a ton of Asian places, a couple of places which Muttonistas recommended to me, particularly Indian places. And they seem to be genuine Indian as opposed to Pakistani or Bangladeshi or Sri Lankan. I love all of those cuisines, don't get me wrong, but it's quite interesting, quite unusual, quite cosmopolitan. And back in the day, going for a curry in Ireland is a bit of a hit and miss affair, but the quality is pretty good these days. Anyway, back to topic, to the pub. Looks like quite a modern place, but I'm told they have a great Beamish here, so let's hope it's another creamer. Okay, pub number 3, on shows. On shows, I think I've got it right finally. And this does look like a beaut of a pint. The Muttonistas behind me drinking it into form, and I've seen several other customers on the Beamish as well. Bit of a more modern pub, quite trendy, quite a young crowd, but it doesn't mean the pint's going to be bad. In fact, I mean, just look at that. It looks beautiful, doesn't it? That is on the money. That is on the money, Muttonistas. Yes, smoky as usual. And some people say they get a hint of coffee from Beamish. I don't myself. It's the smokiness, the creaminess that does it for me. And I have to say, this is a pub that serves it really well. If you walk past this place, you wouldn't have thought so. But if you're going to do a Beamish crawl, Muttonistas, this is a place you need to come to. Right, Muttonistas, coming to the end of the pint, and what a creamer that was, a real creamy Beamy. And I'd say actually the pint here does edge the Harold House. I'd say overall when it comes to the decor, the warmness of the staff, the leather seating, the TV screens with sport, more of them there than here, I'd actually give the Harold House the edge. But in terms of just the beer quality, Muttonistas, we have a new leader tonight. It's Shows. Right, Muttonistas, pub number 4, the Hairy Lemon. This is the most controversial pick of my 5. Some of you Muttonistas have raved about this. Some of you have said, no, it's too much of a restaurant, doesn't have good beer. Well, we've set a schedule. Enough people have recommended it. If it's a bad pint, I'll call it out. But from what I can see from the outside, I think it's going to be quite decent. Okay, Muttonistas, the Hairy Lemon didn't have any Beamish, so we have a plan B to the long haul. And look at the friendly punters behind me. I'm looking forward to this. We might even have a Guinness if there's no Beamish here, because it's so nice and friendly. Okay, Muttonistas, after 2 misses, I think we've got a hit here, the Lord Edward. So it's going to be a 4 Beamish pub crawl with some Guinness afterwards. This is a pub that the taxi driver described to me as a place very popular with regulars, and by that I mean people who come here every afternoon. Probably a different clientele in the evening, but some of the Muttonistas who were at the first pub did tell me they were here last night and the beer was good and that they did have Beamish. We saw the tap, so fingers crossed, we're confident. Okay, Muttonistas, pub number 4, the Lord Edward. Interesting history about this pub. You don't usually see pubs in Ireland with names associated with English nobility, but apparently it's got a lot to do with a chap called Edward who rebelled against the local lord. Was called the Edward for a while and then they changed the name. Anyway, enough waffle there. On to the Beamish, and it's going to be 4 pubs tonight and then somewhere that's a big hitter in the world of Guinness, so we can compare and contrast the pints we just had with a famous Guinness pub. We were going to do 5 pints, but it just shows you it is actually quite hard sometimes to get this in Dublin. We could have gone to a Spoons, but I go to enough of those in Britain. Anyway, let's see how the pint is here. It's a nice pub. It's got a lot busier in the last 20 minutes. Lots of screens with the football on. I can see a musical instrument in the background. I don't know if they have a session on here. But anyway, let's give this a go. That is pretty good, actually. I'd say it's about on a par with the Harold House. I think that Ansho's was probably the best, and O'Connell's comes in at number 4. None of them bad pints, and I must say that since we've been in here, this is actually my 2nd pint, naughty me, more Beamish drinkers have arrived and are drinking the pint into form. So this is a good one, Muttonistas, and I suppose the acid test will be how I view the Guinness, having had 5 pints of Beamish. Okay, Muttonistas, this has been another creamer. I mean, just look at that lacing stick lacquering around the glass. And I'd say that sometimes when you're on the Beamish, the first one, the smokiness can hit you a little bit. But once you're on a session, wow, it slips down like velvet. Anyway, we're going to finish this pint and go on to a big hitting Guinness pub and see whether I'm a massive fan of Guinness after all this Beamish and whether there's a massive difference in quality. I suspect I will prefer the Guinness, but maybe not by much. Only one way to find out though. Okay, Muttonistas, final stop on this vlog, Bows. I've been here a couple of times and you've probably seen it in some of my older videos about Guinness in Dublin. However, this is different because we have been on the Beamish all night and I want to see how the Beamish we've had compares to one of the best pints of Guinness you can have in Dublin.
Yeah, like for
Now, whilst I'm waiting for the pint to settle, a little bit about the pub. I mean, this is totally old school. This is wooden panelling, superb. Makes you feel as if you're really in a proper pub. I'm hoping the Guinness is on form tonight, but for those who like whiskey, they have a massive selection of whiskies, Irish, Scottish, and even Japanese. And isn't that a thing of beauty, Muttonistas, watching that pint settle? Okay, Muttonistas, settle down in Bows, beautifully poured pints. The pints are flying out left, right and centre, so it should be racing into form. But how does it taste after all that Beamish? If you remember on my day trip to Cork, at the Shelbourne, I took the Three Amigos challenge and I got a bit mixed up after having had a little Beamish with the Guinness and the Murphys. So let's see whether having had a session on the Beamish is going to distinctly alter my perception of the Guinness. It's a nice pint, it's really creamy, but I'm detecting a little bit of sweetness compared to Beamish. It's a lovely pint, but I think I'm going to have a second pint to give this a full and true assessment, Muttonistas. Okay, Muttonistas, coming to the end of the pint, decent, but the thing is that Beamish is so strongly flavoured that we really do need a second to assess the comparison properly. I know you're going to say any excuse for another pint, and you could possibly be right there, but it is true that those smoky flavours have coated my tongue, and I need another pint to properly assess the Guinness here in comparison to the Beamish we've had tonight.
people will be like, what? Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's good to hear the bands.
Okay, Muttonistas, second pint here at Bows, and yes, it has made a bit of a difference. I have to say, I think you have to treat these two drinks as different drinks. I know they're both stouts, but it's about the same as comparing a pale ale with a brown ale, or two different styles of pale ale like a Pacific and a New England. They are different. They're both great drinks in their own right, and of course in Dublin, Guinness is king. I have to say, you can't go wrong if you go for Beamish over Guinness. Not a big fan of Murphy's myself because of the sweetness, but obviously when we'd had all the Beamish tonight, the first pint of Guinness did actually taste a bit sweet. I know Guinness is often called a pint of plain. That's a little bit unfair. It's just that the coffee and chocolate notes are very subtle, and there is always a hint of bitterness, again very subtle. Why it's a popular drink. Anyway, Muttonistas, I have a plane to catch tomorrow. I'm probably going to feel slightly rough on my journey to China. I will provide an Instagram airport review, of course, even if I feel as if I'm being massaged with sandpaper at the airport tomorrow. Plenty of content coming, of course, lots of food stuff from China. This was like a one-series vlog because I just stopped over here for the night, completely gratuitously on my way over to the Far East. But until then, please remember, folks, to keep sharing, tell your friends about me, keep subscribing, keep liking, push me up that algorithm. But most importantly, don't forget, you can't beat a bit of mutton.